We will move on now to our next workshop of the day with whānau, Daisy Bentley-Gray and Nina Pelling from Unitec. And their workshop is on cultural perspectives of health decisions and the concept of whānau. So the team will discuss holistic whole person education requiring cultural mindfulness. The workshop will show how they work holistically with the community, which not only honours people's cultural identities, but also adds to what their cultures have informed them in decision making. So kia ora, Daisy and Nina.
Kia ora tātou te whānau e hui mai nei tini wā. Since my name is Hua, I'm a senior lecturer in academic learning and advisor learning advisor at Unitec. So since 2019, my colleagues Daisy here and Nina, who can't be here, she's on leave, and myself have been constantly invited to deliver a cultural perspective on health decisions for medical imaging students and also on the concept of whānau for social practice students. Our experience has been that these workshops opened up a safe space for teachers and students to meet authentically and as whole persons, as cultural beings, to share our personal experiences and our observations as well. And this also inspired students to be culture conscious and prepare them to be culture responsive when they graduate from Unitec to work in the community. So today, since Nina can't be here, just Daisy and myself will be sharing our cultural perspective on these two matters. I will start with my Chinese cultural concept of whānau and health decisions. So when I say because there is an official population of 1.4 billion Chinese people on the planet. I'm only one of the 1.4 billions. So since this is one aspect of the personal experience or perspective of the culture. And also in China, in China, there are 56 nationalities residing across the whole area of 960,000 square kilometers space. And Han and Chinese, Han or Chinese is the majority nationality. All the other minority nationalities, they live in largely autonomous region. So they have their own governance under the in China. So I am of Han or Chinese. So these two terms are used to refer to the majority nationality. So therefore, the Chinese, so-called Chinese perspective is really of this Han or Chinese majority nationality in China. And this is also my own personal perspective and experience, because even within the Han or Chinese nationality, there are so different. We all live in such vast land and different locality and different climates. Therefore, we eat different food, and also we speak different dialects. Therefore, this so where where am I in the map of China? So this is the province, the red, the province where I come from, called Henan province. So this is the whole area of China. And to zoom in, the Yellow River, which is my hour, you can see it's on the northern part of the country. So and it is also one of the longest rivers in China. And the second one is in the south. It's the Yangtze River. So also we start from in the almost very close to each other, the area, but goes to one from north, one runs through in the south. So I am in the north and in this area. So you can see Beijing. So it's I would say south western to Beijing and northeast western to Shanghai here, Beijing here, and my city is here. So this give you an idea of, you know, the locality. And so the fundamental structure of Chinese culture is it is a collective culture. I give you a visual example of in terms of a contrast in terms of postal addresses. In the West, you start with my individuality, my name Hua, and then goes on to my family name, and then the address, and then blah blah. So I'm the person, the individual is on top of the collective. However, if you write to me in China, we will start from the collective, the China, the Republic of China, and then the province, and then the city, and then the work stress or address or residential address, then my surname, then myself. So the individual is at the bottom of the collective. So this is only just a visual contrast of the different, you know, concept of the different cultural concept of the person or of the whānau. I'm not saying which one's bigger, which one's better, which one's not less good. I will say both serve and limit. So continue on in the 7,000 years of Chinese history, we have a lot of philosophical, spiritual, and thoughts, schools that influence Chinese people's way of living or of thinking. So first is the I Ching. Everyone knows this yin yang symbol, which belongs to Taoism, which depicts. So they believe that the yin and yang are the fundamental two elements in the universe, and also it is in every living things in between the sky and the earth. So the yin and yang energy forever morph into each other and supplement and complement each other. So there's yang energy in the yin, and there's yin energy in the yang. So this concept really fundamentally influenced Chinese people's way of living and thinking. Everything we do, we think about yin yang. And so this one, Taoism talk about this, is a big way in nature. And therefore, every family member or every individual will practice self development and self-growth, look, you know, in nature, and seeking and following the way in nature. Most of the time in the record, you will only see male individuals doing this, pursuing the ideological goals, and women, children are not seen in this in the depiction, the pictures and photos. And so another big influence is Confucius school, Confucian school of thoughts and beliefs. Confucian promote or advocate order in the society, and so order starts from the family, because family is the basic unit of society. And relationship between family members has political, economic, and social implications. This is a picture of a family, of a group of family members. Each one is given name according to the order in the you know, spectrum, maybe following their birth order or the position in the family system. Ancestors are venerated. Elders are respected. Elder brother is an elder whose order followed in many occasions, even now. So, and another influence is Buddhism. So people practice meditation or going to the temples to, you know, burn as an fragrant incense, and as a way of maintaining well-being. Traditional Chinese family is elder-centered. So you will see 4 generations under one roof, and the center are the elders. Children just come along. And so the family system or organization takes precedence over individual aspirations or desires. Observing the family order means a consciousness of observing the social order. That is really a very project in the Confucius school, that family order is strictly observed. Therefore, every one of the family members go out in the society, they naturally observe the social order. It become ingrained in them. And traditionally, Chinese culture is male-dominant patriarchal system. Women and children are invisible; their voice is unheard. And also food binding, so women rely on men for survival. This practice was stopped in 1911. Even though today, if one is not conscious, the male dominance will come up. And I think this is very similar to any patriarchal system. And the lingering of the tradition of male dominance showed in the one-child policy that boys are more valued than girls. So gender imbalance resulted in one-child policy. We have a policy of years with five boys to 1 girl. And the one-child policy actually shifted the family structure from elder-centered to child-centered. And that means a lot of pressure put on the one child because the family aspirations and parents, desires or expectations of themselves now, landed on the child's shoulder. And also it means one child is taking more responsibilities now, social and family responsibilities, looking after their aging parents and their great grandparents. So big pressure on them. Yet individuality was brought on by the one-child policy. Individuals are seen, they have different, their needs are met, they have their different style, different color, not like their parents, all same color. So that's a kind of a visual contrast again. So you will still find that parents dominating the decision-making of the children's education, hobby, well-being, even who they marry. So this is also the lingering of the elder-centered culture. And collective culture also means when you work with one family member, you are working with the whole family. So be mindful of that. Health-related belief and behaviors. The belief is, generally speaking, maintaining health is one's own responsibility. That's because traditionally the Chinese medicine was operated on call. The practitioners were on call in the community, and also people self-refer or follow, word of mouth to look for if they need medical attention. And so far, we still don't have government subsidized the GP as primary care because everyone just traditionally, by default, look after their own well-being. So the behaviors that they do regular physical exercises as a way to maintain their well-being. You can see, and they follow good sleeping patterns, self-disciplinary behaviors in the eating or health decision making. And also means they treat minor injury or wounds by themselves instead before seeking professional attention, even when they live in the Western world. A good example is where there's a term called 坐月子. It's sitting the month after childbirth. It is a month-long confinement after childbirth. Was practiced since former Han Dynasty, which is 200 BC to 8 AD. So practiced for over 2,000 years. And it's still being practiced now. Okay, so we just naturally get 1 month leave. Nobody's expecting the new mother to work within that 1 month. And so we also have food as medicine. So every family, according to their own culture, their own locality, their own outbringing, their own belief, they eat differently. In pregnancy, they give the woman, the would-be mother, different food to nourish the mother and the baby. And after birth, they also give different food to help releasing the blood and also help the milk to come to run for the baby. But every family will have a variety of things to offer. Which means one needs to always treat each family or individual on a case-by-case manner. Never lump us together to say, okay, so this is the Chinese people or Asian people, you treated them together as same. That will be problematic. This is my reference. So if you are interested, it will be maybe on the website. You can have a look. I wanted to add little bit some notes that previously I presented this workshop many times in class. never came to me only after recently. It came to me that when I presented, I did not have these 3 slides to talk about where I sit or the details of things. It was because unconsciously the collective culture gave me the focus or direct my focus to only the general information. So these 3 slides I added it's the indication of the influence, the Western influence on me, since I've lived in New Zealand for over 20 years now. Finally, it came out. Okay, I think this is me. I will leave the time for my colleague Daisy to continue the communication, the presentation. Okay, over to you, Daisy.
Thank you, Ha. I'll share my screen. I'm going to do it in presentation mode. Okay. Talofa. My name is Daisy. I'm a Pacific Learning Advisor at Unitec. We have Pacific peoples in general learning advisor roles as well, but there's 3 of us here at Unitec, specifically with the titles Pacific Learning Advisors. And there's a reason behind that, other than us Pacific are a priority group, under TEC. And so the presentation today is, as explained by Hua, is very important because, we all know that the Pacific population in New Zealand continues to increase. And so the likelihood of our students, current students, when they do graduate and become health professionals, become social workers in the future, it's important that they take the awareness that they learn from their studies with them, and they help to and embed those learnings in a way that become safe practitioners in their respective fields. And so this presentation is a little bit about mostly from my experience, but also as a Pacific person living in New Zealand. And so that's why specifically I've put an emphasis on the A or A in the title of my presentation, which is a Pacific cultural perspective on health and family. And the reason why I've done that is because there is no the Pacific cultural perspective on health and family. As you will know, Pacific peoples are not homogenous, and that's something that I'm very strong in, and I want to advocate in every opportunity I get asked to present in a class to students, is to make sure that when I leave the room, students will be aware that there is no the Pacific cultural perspective, that we're not a homogenous group, but rather we are very diverse. And so here you will see and hear from my perspective in terms of my experience as a Samoan person living in New Zealand, but also identifying as a Pacific person. So just a brief content is defining. It's very important that when I talk to students about Pacific ways of being, about Pacific families, about Pacific health and Pacific values, that I contextualize Pacific in the New Zealand context. And so usually I go through it, and so that's what I'll do quickly, considering that we have very limited time. And then a personal, always important to position myself in the space that I'm in, or the various spaces that I get invited to speak. And so the dynamics of Pacific family, of course, I'm not sure if you're aware of the whānau model that's was created specifically for the New Zealand context, and then Pacific values and strategies. Okay, usually I start with a map of the Pacific. This isn't the best map. I'm not sure if you can spot, but there's a couple of islands that are missing from this map. So that's something I need to work on, but it does give really a look in terms, an overview of what the Pacific is. It's a massive place. And it's very important that I provide this visual, because I want students to see that Pacific peoples living in New Zealand did not just come from one island group called Pacific Islands. Rather, they see the Pacific and the islands in the Pacific scattered across, the biggest ocean in the world. And so, but there is a story behind the different colors, the different areas that you see. But that story is also very important, but not the time that we have, but quickly, in that the Pacific is categorized into 3 big groups. You have Micronesia in the northwestern Pacific, and you have Melanesia in the western Pacific, southwestern, and then you have Polynesia in the eastern Pacific. And the reason why these terms were actually put there, they were put there by the European explorers who founded or discovered the Pacific in the age of exploration. And so they gave these groups of islands in the northwestern Pacific Micronesia, denoting small, micro meaning small things. And so micro, because you'll find that in the islands within this group are actually made up of raised atolls. They're not volcanic islands. They're not as abundant in resources where you'll find trees, mountains, rather, and also the stature and the characteristics of people. It's actually comprising smaller in stature people compared to the other groups. In Melanesia, the term Melanesia comes from mela, denoting color. And so these are often called the Black Islands, because the people that live within the islands found in the Western Pacific are darker in skin, but also have fuzzy hair. And then you have in Polynesia, the reason for Polynesia, it denotes many. And so you'll find that with the islands in Polynesia are in the shape, or you will find that often it's referred to as the Polynesian Triangle. And that's because it's far stretched, but it's also consisting of many islands. But some of those islands are missing in this map. So defining and contextualizing Pacific peoples, again, often we come across conversations, come across situations where Pacific peoples are boxed in the one box, and that's something that's very, that impacts a lot of things. And so therefore I'm a strong advocate to make sure that in the spaces I get invited to speak in, that message is actually made clear, that we are not homogenous. We are very diverse. Samoans are different from Tongans. Tongans are different from Niueans. There will be shared similarities, but the unique cultural aspirations, rituals, and traditions of each group is unique to themselves. So Pacific peoples are from those 3 broad areas, but you'll find interestingly, in the case of New Zealand, we'll get to that slide very soon, but also, so that's why it's very important that for future practitioners in New Zealand, because of the growing number, the growing population of Pacific people, it's important that they are aware of this, so that their practice is more sensitive, is more safe for Pacific peoples that come to work with them or are assigned to them. So in the New Zealand context, the brief history, there was this mass migration in the 1950s. There were very few Pacific peoples in New Zealand before the 1950s, in the 90s, but because of an economic boom in the 1950s and there not being enough people working in the primary industries, they needed to look elsewhere. And so many people came to New Zealand to work in forestry and meatworks, just to provide that labor. But there was also a reward for Pacific peoples in that they were paid much higher income than the income that they earned in the islands. And so there was that. But also others who aspired to do well in education were part of that migration movement. So in the 1970s, in the New Zealand context, there was an economic crisis. As a result, jobs were very few, if any. And so there started a process of, not deporting, but, for Pacific Islanders that had come for work, who were not citizens, to be taken back. And so I'm not sure if you're aware of the dawn raids of the 1970s. It's known as one of New Zealand's dark, past, examples of dark past. And so therefore, in the 1970s, people were actually asked to leave New Zealand because there wasn't enough work to go around. But for those who had overstayed their employment visas, their homes were raided at dawn, hence the word dawn raids, by police and immigration officials. They would go to people's homes that they suspected housed people that had overstayed their visas, and then would catch them while they were still sleeping or unaware, and then, of course, take them to the police stations and then await deportation. And so that was a practice in the late 70s, and I think it still happened till towards the 80s, but a few incidents of those. So again, very traumatic period for Pacific peoples living in New Zealand at that time. Okay, to continue. The thing with Pacific peoples, when you hear Pacific peoples, the term has changed from Pacific Islanders to Pacific peoples. The reason being is in the 1950s, there were more island-born Pacific peoples living or had come to New Zealand to work than actually New Zealand-born Pacific peoples. And so as a result, the reference Pacific Islanders is actually denoting people who were born in the islands but had come and now living in New Zealand, and then living in New Zealand. But now that's being changed to Pacific peoples. You'll note with the Ministry of Pacific Peoples, for Pacific peoples, it's changed as well. It's no longer, the Ministry Pacific Island Affairs, which used to be, and that's because over 60% of Pacific peoples living in New Zealand today are actually New Zealand-born Pacific peoples, and so there's that change in the reference. Pacific population is a young population, and that 34% of the population are people under the age of 15 years, and only 5% are those above 65 years. And so the median age for Pacific peoples at the moment is 23 years. So it's relatively a young population. And so you'll see a lot more people coming through primary, in the education system. And it's very important that as future practitioners or current educators, it's important that you're aware of these differences as well as people, who make up the Pacific context. So in positioning myself as a Samoan woman, Pacific person living in the diaspora in New Zealand, always when I get invited to talk about family, I have my family at the forefront. And so this sentence from a poem or from a quote by one of our former head of state, Tauira is one that resonates with me, and this is the one that I always talk about when I get an opportunity to talk about family from a Pacific perspective, and that I belong to my family and my family belongs to me. And so here you get these photographs are actually of my family. This was me with my maternal grandmother, whom I'm named after. Her name was Daisy. And so she passed away when I was 8, but she continues to be with me. I believe that for as long as I'm alive, all of my family members, present and past, continue to live, because I take him with me wherever I go. And so in the middle is a photo of me and my husband and our 5 boys. They've all grown now, but yeah, that was taken a couple of years ago. And this photo here is very precious to me. It's the last photo that was taken a year before my father-in-law passed. This photo is precious because it's got both my parents and my parents-in-law. It was at the celebration of my husband's 40th birthday, and so it was very meaningful because this was my father-in-law passed suddenly, freak accident, just a year after this photo was taken. So again, very significant because it's got some of my siblings and their children and my husband's siblings and well, none of his nieces and nephews. Okay, so here is that poem. Again, with many Pacific peoples, you'll find that this poem is something that reflects who they are as peoples. And so quickly, I want to read it because it does have a lot of meaning. In that I am not an individual. I am an integral part of the cosmos. I share divinity with my ancestors, the land, the seas, and the skies. I am not an individual because I share a tofi, or my inheritance, with my family, my village, and my nation. I belong to my family, and my family belongs to me. I belong to my village, and my village belongs to me. I belong to my nation, and my nation belongs to me. This is the essence of my sense of belonging. And so you'll find that for many Pacific peoples, this holds true to them. And so this is exactly how I feel about it. You know, as much as I love being in New Zealand, home will always be Samoa. And there will be many who feel that same way. And that, but I will always be a part of it, despite me being away from it, from Samoa. Okay, and so story has changed. The complexity, its dynamic, has changed. And that in the 50s, things were a little more, you know, New Zealand was considered the land of milk and honey. You know, people wanted to come, you know, they saw New Zealand as offering, you know, better opportunities. And so more money, education opportunities. And so you have migrants coming. And so these migrants were island born, island raised. So they're very strong in their cultures, very strong. And religion was one thing, one element that you really can't take away from people who were born and raised in the islands. And so this was also carried with them. They brought it when they came to New Zealand. So and then currently, because majority of Pacific peoples living in New Zealand are New Zealand born people, that hasn't changed in the way that people still have strong affiliations with churches. But some things have changed. We are still collective in many of our practices, but there's also an increased sense and awareness and practice of that individuality. But we tend to also remain collective, strong in the way that we practice our cultures here in New Zealand. And again, it's different for many different peoples. I'm a Samoan, born and raised in Samoa, educated in the Pacific, in Samoa, Fiji, and a bit in New Zealand. But my experience is different from other Samoans as well. And so that's very important that we don't homogenize. Everybody as people who have had the same experience just because they come from Samoa or they are of Samoan descent. Also, this is a very lovely poem, and it's I'm not sure if you're aware, but Melanie and I, she's an academic and scholar at Auckland University. This poem here, New Zealand born and raised Samoan. Poem here also represents a lot of New Zealand born Pacific peoples, and so I want to read it because again it's significant. I have children. I have 5 boys. 2 of them were born in Samoa but don't remember Samoa, and then 3 were born here, raised here. So this poem represents also that other element of New Zealand-born Pacific people. That I am Samoan, not a Samoan. To my ainga in Samoa, I am a Palangi. I am a New Zealander, not a New Zealander. To New Zealanders, I am a bloody coconut. At worst, a Pacific Islander at best. I am to my Samoan parents at times. And so this is significant and again representative of many people and their situations. Okay, so a health model that was created for the New Zealand context. I'm not sure, whether you're aware of the whānau model, but it's one that's often used at our school in Waitakere, which is our healthcare and social practice school. And so the whānau model, I get asked to come and talk about it, and it's an interesting model. When I first came, because I'm a migrant. When I first came, I said, that's not how you translate meeting house in Samoan, because the word for a meeting house is whalefono. It's reversed. So I had an issue with this, and then I was kind of forced to find out why it's called a whānau. And so I found out in my reading that it's named after Tau of Lotu Inaman's maternal grandmother, whom was dear to him. So of course, then I said, okay, that makes sense. But the whānau model is often used. It's as a Pacific model. It's a metaphor of a Samoan whale or a Pacific whale, but it's got several elements that have a significant part to play in the one person. It is a holistic way of seeing an individual, so that people are aware that there's a whole lot of other things happening behind or within the individual you see in the physical space. And so, so the core, I suppose I would say, it's family, which is foundational. For any person of Pacific heritage, you will find that family is quite significant. In today's age, sometimes family is inclusive of non-blood related people, but people in terms of their in-laws or people who have been supportive of them. And so within the Pacific, the term family is always is not the nuclear family, the essence of the nuclear family, but rather it's the essence of the extended family. That when someone says, oh, he's family, he's my auntie, but when you really unpack it and look into it, they're actually a neighbor that's helped brought them up, so they're part of a village, and so therefore they're considered family. And so that's the essence of family for many Pacific people, that they're not blood related, but they are or have had a part to play in the well-being of that individual. And so you have family. Yeah.
Aroha mai for interrupting. Just to let you know, you've just got a few minutes to go.
Okay. I'll end here, but so culture is very important, regardless of where people are and the time that they live in the 70s, 80s, 90s to currently. It should be the same throughout, regardless if they're young and old, rich or poor. That when they come to you for support, you need to treat them with the respect you would any other person. And then the other po, they represent the other elements of a person's well-being, which I won't have time to go over, but happy to do so if you have questions after. Pacific values are very important, and they bind people together. And so I've got these concepts I want to share. Respect is huge, humility is huge, alofa is huge. Talanoa, always have an opportunity to talanoa or to discuss, to talk, or even not even speak, but be present, to let that person know that you're there for them. Strategies, relationships, very important. Always try your best to establish a relationship with people that you're working with, because once they feel that they can trust you, then a whole lot of things will happen. And then the outcome of well-being that you want to have happen will happen. Creating safe spaces for people to be themselves, to be able to open up and talk with you, to talanoa. Communication is key. The way that you speak with people is speak with, not to or at. It's sometimes very important. And just to sum up, knowledge and awareness of the diversity that exists amongst Pacific peoples, our cultures, our traditions, will ensure that, wherever you're practicing, that you are safe and you are sensitive to these cultural differences, that people feel can trust and, can come to you for better outcomes. Yep, tai lava. That's it from me. Thank you.
Oh, that was awesome. Thank you so much, Daisy and Hua, for sharing your insights and your lived experience. It was really, really helpful. Kia ora.